not hold keeping livestock.
Council, are you ready?
Maybe, sure. What are we ready for?
Good morning, everyone. This is the Tuesday, June 21, 2022, Town Council mid-month meeting or workshop meeting for the town of Southern Shores. It's also the summer solstice, I believe. So if you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll have a, if you don't mind, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Council, do we have any amendments to our agenda, or can I have a motion for approving?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
To mention that two of our council members were not able to be with us today, Mark Botanic and Leo Holland. We have on our agenda some public. We have a member of the public who has joined us today. Hey, Mark. He's declining to share any comments with us at this moment. Okay, no worries. And our business items today are all in the purview of Ms. Bonnie Swain. So Bonnie, kicking it off to you, ma'am.
Good morning, Mayor, members of council. Before you, you have three budget amendments. In the first budget amendment, number 24, where it shows the increase to the transfer out to the capital reserve fund for beach nourishment, and then we decreased the debt payment for the nourishment. So the only thing that we had to pay on the debt service this year was the interest. And so this is the remainder of the amount, which was $554,555 that we did a budget amendment for to make the payment. So that money is actually going to go back into the capital reserve fund for beach nourishment for the future payments. And on the next budget amendment, number 25, the increase in the revenue lines of land transfer tax and insurance proceeds, those are monies that we actually have in our hand that's above what we budgeted for revenues. The insurance proceeds, that was for the storm that came through and knocked the tree on the Public Works building. So the insurance paid for that and the tree removal and that sort of thing. And the offset expenditures are the lines that we needed to increase the $7,300 in the police department that says capital outlay. That is the remainder of the amount that they needed for the RMS system. That was the total of $89,000. We found the remaining $82,000 within their current budget. The police separation, that is for the officer that we had that retired in October. So we now have 2 that we pay the separation allowance to. So that's what that money is for. The holiday pay in the police department, that is what we need. We are going to be that much over budget this year. In saying that, we have been budgeting the same amount probably, I would say, for 8 to 10 years. So it's really time to bump it up. And I did bump it up this year in 22-23 budget. So we should be okay on that. We had some maintenance done on a vehicle that the planning department uses for the building inspector to do his inspections. That was a nice little surprise for us that we didn't anticipate. And along with the travel in the planning department, as you know, our building inspector, he has really worked hard to get all of his certifications done, to go get his classes, take his test and that sort of thing. So we had kind of given him over a couple of years, but he kind of got it all done this year. So that kind of pushed us over on that line. So that's what that's for, as well as the training line. The brush trimming is actually some of the offset of the insurance proceeds. That was the cleanup of that tree on the Public Works building. And on the equipment purchase for $8,800 for the Public Works, that is for the zero-turn mower that was going to be in the 22-23 budget that we had money to buy this year. And then the town building maintenance, I believe that is for some stuff that he has ordered for the police department. Is it a window and a door, Chief? Does that sound right? So that finishes up that. But this is actually money that we physically have in our hand, but that's how we have to show it. And then the final budget amendment, number 26, is for the capital project fund for beach nourishment. And what that is, and I think that you all also are amending the ordinance at this meeting as well. But basically what this is doing is this is reimbursing the general fund for the engineering and professional fees that we spent in 2021 year. So we have to show that as a budget amendment to reimburse the general fund for that. So that's what this. Are there any questions?
Very good.
Thank you.
Any questions, folks? Nope.
The revenue for that reimbursement, is that from our MSD tax collection or is that county contribution? For number 26. That's MSD.
So this is from, so we've got 2 different things going on here. Within the general fund is where we show the debt service payment for the special obligation bonds. That's in the general fund. This is in the capital project fund, the $11 million budget that we have in that fund, which consists of the $1.4 million grant, the $4.3 million from the county, and the 5.5 the debt service that we got. So that's a separate project that we will actually, fund that we will use to pay for the project. So since we have done the reimbursement resolution prior, like in November of 2020, we can reimburse ourselves for these expenses that we did leading up to. So it's going to come out of that $11 million that we have. Okay. And it's going to go into the general fund, which you will find that reflected when the audit comes this year in unassigned fund balance. Okay. Just like the $471,000 from the ARP money, same thing. That was unanticipated or unbudgeted revenue. And then when, they allowed us to do it to supplant salaries, we went ahead and did that at the last meeting and transferred that over. So there will be a surplus, and you'll see that when we get our audit for this year.
And just to follow up on Matt's question, I think it was $250,000 we got from the county for expenses.
Correct. So
And
there,
that's already in that $11 million fund?
no, that was last year.
Okay.
So last year, we got 250,000 from their county
Mhm.
for the engineering for the project. So that money essentially rolled over to fund balance last year. So that on top of this 233,000 plus for this year, don't have that in front of me. I think I have also things that we've paid for this year out of the general fund. I have done a journal entry, haven't had to do a budget amendment, a journal entry to take it from the general fund to expense it towards this capital project fund. So that frees up the money in the general fund. So all of that will be seen reflected rolling into the fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Bonnie. So you need from us, is it 3 separate motions for each budget amendment, or can we do one motion to approve all 3?
I think you to approve all 3, but I wanted to make sure too, Cliff just brought to my attention that
Amended
you all
ordinance.
amend
Yeah.
the beach nourishment project ordinance as well. I guess
So we
that
need,
would be a
so we need to do
second.
2 motions then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. So to get everything on track, we need a motion to amend the beach nourishment project ordinance as explained on your page 2, rolling over to page 3 of your meeting packet today.
Okay, so I move that we approve Beach Nourishment Project Ordinance Amendment Number 1, which is attached to our agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions? I don't want to go too fast on amending the beach nourishment project ordinance.
I had a question for Cliff real quick.
Yep.
There's a reduction in engineering and construction oversight and an increase in professional fees. I haven't done the math. Is that a like to like?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
So it's really just a count bucket switch.
Yep.
Gotcha. Right. That was all the discussion I'm ready for.
Okay. Anything else jumping out, council members?
Just a question more of curiosity. Does the turtle monitoring money go to NEST or does it go to some federal agency?
It goes to Nest. Nest has the contract. There's 2 parts of the turtle monitoring. Of course, Nest does the pre inspection in the morning so they can dredge. And then there's also inspection on the boat, but I think that comes on the dredge, but I think that comes from a second
Okay,
set of
thanks.
money.
Any other follow-up questions, council members? Think we're ready to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 3-0. That is amended. And then we can have if we could have a motion to approve budget amendments 24, 25, and 26.
I move that we approve budget amendments number 24, 25, and 26 as attached to our agenda.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Any follow-up questions after Bonnie and Cliff's explanation of what we're doing, moving money around?
No.
We'll go ahead and vote then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries 3-0. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to have some updates from our town manager, Cliff Ogburn. Morning, Cliff.
Morning. There's 3 things that I want to talk about first, and then I'm going to ask Wes to talk about the RFQ for the land use plan, and then the chief and I talk about traffic. But first, the street improvement project, the tentative pre-construction meeting will be held June 30th. And of course, that's when we'll meet with Fred Smith and we'll lay out all the parameters by which they'll start the construction project. Fred Smith has told me that they'd like to start in July. So they'll be starting almost immediately after the pre-construction meeting. I have placed in front of you a proposal from Kimley Horn, and this is to address conceptual plans for the replacement for the Juniper Trinity Culvert. I'm not asking you to, I wanted you all to see this and then maybe at the July meeting, ask you to take action to approve this if you're comfortable with it. This is something we could exempt ourselves from the Minnie Brooks Act with the resolution because it's under the $50,000 threshold. If we were doing a quality-based selection for a project over 50,000, then we'd have to go through the RFQ. We could still do that, but Kimley Horns, they're the ones that designed the Tall Pine Bridge. They were the engineers, construction oversight, construction admin for that bridge. So I felt like they were familiar with Southern Shores and the hydrogeology and geotechnical and everything else. So David Bradley and I had discussions with them, and what we did, we asked them to consider 3 different concepts. And I have misplaced, okay, so the 3 different structural alternatives to replace the existing pipe and culvert. The 3 alternatives to be provided include a cast-in-place reinforced concrete flat slab bridge, a cord slab bridge, and a prefabricated buried arch structure. There are the opinion of probable cost, there's elevations, there's drawings so that you can kind of try and get a visual of what we're talking about. Let's see, there's, I think, 4 tasks. Task 1 would be preliminary hydraulic study and technical memo. Task 2 would be the conceptual roadway design. Task 3 would be conceptual structural plans. And task 4 is a preliminary utility coordination and summary memo. Just if there are utilities that had to be moved for one of the 3 alternatives, that could obviously move the price way up. What my end goal would be from this is to be able to put you in a position to decide which one of these 3 alternatives you want to select to move forward in replacing that culvert. So I just wanted to go ahead and get that out there so you could be looking at it and see what questions you have, see if there's anything missing that we may need to add, and also just to see if you're comfortable with the exemption for the Minnie Brooks or whether or not you feel like we need to go out for an RFQ. And then the Gingite Trail Stormwater Project, I just wanted to update you on where we are there. The design and construction plans are complete. We need to get an easement, a utility easement on a piece of property for, of course, the groundwater will be lowered, the pipe will run down the right of way, but it has to discharge on private property. So we're getting that surveyed, and Robert Hobbs is drafting up the easement for that. And so that, and then once that we have that easement signed and in hand, we can start the process for the appropriate permits that we're going to need. We could probably make application now, but with that easement, I think it'll be a clearer, more thorough review, and we're more likely to get the permit back faster. Let's see, those are my 3. I'm going to ask Wes to come up and talk about unless you have any questions about those 3, get Wes to come up and talk about the RFQ for the land use plan.
Anybody want to talk about the Trinity Culvert or the Gingite project further?
But I guess when do you anticipate either one of these projects starting?
The Gingite stormwater would happen probably in the fall, early fall, or as earliest as we possibly can start that. Of course, if according to Fred Smith, they would like to start the pavement project in September. I think if you were to decide in July to go with Kimley Horn, I think we would get that back in 45 days. The report for the Trinity culvert, I think we'd get back in 45 days. So I would hope to be able to have that to you at your August meeting. No, September.
Are the adjacent land owners or property owners, particularly with the Gingite Stormwater Project and the culvert, are they aware that this is in the works?
Yes, ma'am. And we've got the verbal approval from the property owner that we need the easement from. We have spoken with each one of the property owners that this project will abut. I think everyone's aware of it.
Good.
And have we talked to the property owners around the Trinity culvert?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Is that something we think we should do?
Yes.
Okay.
I can make that notification now and say it's something that we're considering, or wait until you all make I'll go ahead and let them know that we
Might
talked
be.
about this today. And
Yeah. Since we're
just
talking
gonna-
about it, might as well let them know directly. Yeah. And then we looked at, or we're going to try to look at the height and so
Yes.
forth and so on, the distance to the water level, et cetera, and how that jives with the other bridge crossings that cross the canals here in town.
Right. I'm gonna, I'm gonna get whoever does this to consider the height, the maximum height, because it could have a cost effect, and we don't need to build it higher than we need to. We don't need the elevation of the road to be any more higher than it needs to be. So that'll be part of I think the SSCA, the boat club, will have to involve them and make sure we're getting the right clearance.
Okay. We all good? with those? Okay. Thank you, Cliff. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Mayor, members of council.
Good morning, Wes.
As you all know, we did budget for updating our land use plan this coming fiscal year. So town staff will soon be sending out a request for proposals seeking a qualified firm to assist the town in updating the town's currently adopted land use plan. I'll be posting the RFP on the NC Plan listserv and town website July 1st, and submittals will be due no later than July 22nd. The updated plan will still serve as our CAMA land use plan, and it will also serve as the town's comprehensive plan as required by North Carolina General Statute 160D. I expect the entire, this is from selecting a qualified firm to local adoption and certification by the Coastal Resources Commission to take about a year or a little over. Public involvement in the project will be important. So I expect we will hold a minimum of 2 public workshop meetings, and we will solicit a survey or some other method suggested by the consultant. Consideration of the submitted proposals will be added to the meeting for you all to choose, or the August workshop meeting. In 2017, that's the last time that we sent out a request for proposals to update the land use plan. And we received 2 proposals, and council did consider, but ultimately neither one of them were selected as we were working on the town code update, and we did not move forward with the project at that time. Any questions?
I have a question. So in addition to facilitating the public involvement, the consultant essentially takes the responsibility for producing, i.e. writing the land use plan
Yes, ma'am.
update. And the town's role, both staff and our residents, is to just provide input, feedback, that sort of thing. That's kind of how this process works. I'm
Yes,
assuming.
ma'am. Town staff would be working with the consultant. And I imagine there would probably be a steering committee. It would involve probably planning board members, maybe council members, town staff, and possibly other stakeholders in the community. They would be involved in the process as well. I believe that's typically how it's done.
Do you have any familiarity with any other Dare County municipality that's gone through this process recently?
I think Manio has either still in the process or they recently finished the process. And I recently saw a RFP from the town of Kitty Hawk to start the process on about this same timeline.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the other towns, but I know Manio, I do remember reading in the media that they were looking for input from the public, and they had a couple of public workshops. But I'm not sure if they finished the process. I don't know.
Very good.
But like I
Thank
said,
you.
Kitty Hawk will be on about the same schedule we are, so it might be possible that one of the consultants or a consultant would be interested in doing both at the same time. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Thank you, Wes.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else want to
Sounds
ask
good.
Wes anything?
Nope, sounds good.
Looking forward to kicking off the update of the land use plan. It's something we've been talking about as a town for a really long time. So I'm sure the staff is ready to move forward as well. And so I think it'll be a good opportunity for residents to think about, the future of the town.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it. Thank you
Yes,
very
ma'am.
much. So I think we're going to talk about traffic. Who wants to start?
It's kind of I didn't do this on purpose, but the segue from the land use plan to traffic I think goes back to at least the 2005 land use plan, where traffic was a major topic of that land use plan. And of course, again, in 2012, and it will be in 2022. But one of the things I think is obviously the traffic, the bridge, and all those concerns are in those reports, but the tolerance that people have to any solutions or recommendations or things that we put in place, I don't know that we knew that until we tried a couple of these things. And of course, when we put the Memorial Day with traffic started out, not bad. The numbers look like they typically would, and the Hickory closure didn't seem to create the chaos that it did. But and then of course the next weekend we didn't do it, and then the weekend of I believe it was June 8th, 11th, 12th. I got that right. Well, the weekend before last, and that was a very chaotic weekend. That closure created backups to nearly the cemetery on South Dogwood. It created backups on East Dogwood. It created some anger and resentment towards the town, just not well received. And the police had a lot of calls for service. The police chiefs provide you with the citations and the warnings that are written, but there's a lot of calls for upset residents that they're responding to, that take time from other things that traffic related they can be working on. There's a lot of please call me. There's a lot of things like that the police have to answer to. Last year when we put up the local traffic only barricades, they seem to have less of a negative impact than they're having now. There's not a whole lot different between what we did last year with those barricades. They look different than what we've done this year, but they seem to be a bigger topic of concern for the residents and for the tourists alike. And that too, I think, is creating some conflict and tension, and the police are having to respond because of those barricades, not because they're working or not working, but because they're creating an issue. And something that still seems to be absent from people's understanding is that the police cannot, and you've heard me say this a number of times, the police cannot pull someone over or stop someone for going around those local traffic only signs. They can't pull someone over for suspicion of not being a resident or having a right to that street. And that has created a lot of, I think, concern amongst our residents that we're not doing anything, which is not the case. So the traffic numbers that we get, the kind of looking at 13th Avenue, the cars that are leaving town, and Skyline, the cars that are coming into town, those numbers look relatively consistent from weekend to weekend. But the volume of traffic that is on the northern end of town is just, it's a lot of traffic, and those numbers look like they're increasing. So going back to those local traffic only barricades, I'm not sure they're having the impact that the positive impact that we would want. I used to feel good about them if they would deter 2 cars out of 10, but I'm not sure we're getting that same benefit. And I don't know this is anything you wanted to decide today with 3 out of 5 members. But I did want to have the police chief kind of give you an idea of what they're dealing with, what he's hearing from his police officers. And then we can kind of talk more about this with your questions or suggestions. So.
Good morning, Chief Cole. Thanks for being with us today.
Morning, Mayor. Thank you, members of council. Couple of things that people's perceptions are obviously sometimes misguided. I know what appears to be a speeding vehicle to the general public, in our reality isn't. We continuously getting calls from certain people on South Dogwood that are claiming that the cars are going 50 miles an hour. And at the same time, it's bumper to bumper traffic. What I've done is I'm going to show you, these are actually some of the reports that we get that we could forward to you if you want, but we compile the data off of these. These are all off of the radar signs all throughout town, but it gives you all the averages and the speeds. Can we do South Dogwood, the next one? Yeah, thank you. This is South Dogwood, closer to the cemetery. But just to give you an idea, the average speed is speed average. As you can see, the average speed is 25 miles an hour, and that's out of a total of 8,909 cars for the entire week, and it averages it out. Now, not saying there aren't cars that are speeding there, but I can tell you that usually on Saturdays and Sundays, that's not the issue. Some of the speeding vehicles that we do catch on the radar sign are usually fire department or EMS or our people going to a heart attack or a stroke call. But that's just to give you an idea. The average is 25, and even if you take it into the 85 percentile, it's still only 4 miles above. It's 29 miles an hour. Let me check one more. And COs, yeah, thank you. Again, people complain that they're speeding there on the weekends. It's bumper to bumper. There was over 3,000 vehicles stacked up there on Saturdays. The average speed is 12 miles an hour as they go through there. That's not to say that there aren't vehicles speeding, but not during the peak time. It's perception is a lot different than reality, obviously. But this will just give you an idea. I can send these to you as additional reports if you'd like, but it'll break down. It'll give you the speeds, the average speeds throughout the week. And then the other nice thing about the report is it shows you the high times. For example, if you look at this one, the high time on Saturday was 369 vehicles. That was between 2 and 3 p.m.
Chief, were your officers able to observe at the COTS traffic light how many cars on average could get onto Duck Road to go north?
Yeah, we had them sitting there for a little bit, and the average is about 6, 7 sometimes.
Okay.
But the average was between 5 and 6. And that's as long as they're moving through Duck.
Because at some point, they're not moving.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you may get
may get
maybe
one.
one or two if
Right.
you're lucky. That's right.
Okay,
And then the problem is then it's blocking everything else. But
yeah.
then it usually moves fairly quick, but
Okay.
the average is about 5 to 6 on
Thank you.
Saturdays. Just to give you just a little bit of an idea on the weekend, this Saturday, again, we had people calling from South Dogwood, said it was speeding. So we had an additional officer had signed up for the overtime and worked the week. Worked from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and conducted a lot of radar and patrol on South Dogwood. The average speed was about 20 miles an hour. He found no speeders there. But he did then from there, he went to Ocean Boulevard along with another officer, and they wrote, I think, 4 or 5 speeding tickets on Ocean Boulevard at the Y. So there are some speeders there as well, even though the average is obeying it. One of the voicemails I think I forwarded to the manager was somebody from over in that area was complaining that while they appreciated the barricade, people were just turning down Trout Run. So there's nothing you can do about those types of things. We tried to put the drone up. Unfortunately, it was just too gusty. So we had to ground that. We will try to do that in the future, especially with the next coming weeks. In 2 weeks, it's going to be a hoot. Trust me. That's why I was really surprised as the manager was that if you look at South Dogwood, I mean, it was over 4,000 vehicles on South Dogwood. There were only two Saturdays in last year that were a little bit higher than that. It was June 18th of this year was 4,200. We had July, the 4th of July weekend last year, there was 4,581 on South Dogwood. And then July 11th, the following week, there was 4,206. So that was a lot of cars this last weekend compared to 4th of July of last year. The numbers are what they are. You've seen some of the people say, well, you know, they're working, but obviously if you look at COTS had, it was over 3,000 vehicles stacking up there. They're the one that's getting slammed more than anybody. And I don't have an answer for that. They're not all coming from South Dogwood. They're coming from Duck Road. They're either going up Hickory or they're going up 11th Avenue for whatever reason, and they're doing whatever the GPS is telling them to do. But if you look at the numbers, just the numbers, it tells me that the barricades, they're driving around the barricades. Our officers sat there and tried to detour them, even though legally they can go through them. And a couple of them, the officer would stop them and go, you really need to go this way. He said, but that's what my GPS is telling me. And that's what they do. And all it takes is one. And then the other 5 or 6 cars behind them go, well, if he did it, I guess I can do it. You know, and they all follow suit. So the comments that we're getting, the barricades look like, and I won't use that word, but they don't look very nice. They're not doing their job. Those are the types of comments that the officers are getting out there. And then we've had others that we really appreciate what you're doing. It's helping a lot. We've had people on COTS say, oh my God, it's really working. No, it's not. It's not. That perception is that it's doing something, but in all honesty, 3,800 cars is a lot of cars. Again, I suggest that just like you have been doing is continue to fight for the Mid-Currituck Bridge. A couple of the other things that we had done, to give you an example, because I know Mr. Neal had mentioned about a checking point. We had another checking point yesterday, and that was over in the Chickahawk area. They got 7 drug arrests, 3 out of 3 different vehicles that were all related. open container one, 3 no driver's license. This was within an hour and a half. So those check-in stations help. And the only reason I'm telling you is because someone may call and say, oh my God, what were all the police doing over there yesterday? And that's what they were doing.
So that was on Monday?
That was yesterday.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. What time of day were your officers out there?
It was, we had in-service training.
Okay.
It was about 3:30, 4 o'clock
Oh, interesting.
that they
Okay.
started. Yep.
Okay.
I don't have the answers. All I can tell you is that all we're doing is moving the problem. We're moving it from one neighborhood to the other, which we already know. And I can tell you that based on what the manager had already said, when we shut down Hickory the week before that caused a lot of major safety issues that we look back in hindsight and go, yeah, we don't ever want to do that again, because it didn't work. For the amount of people that it appeased, there was a lot more that it caused problems for, including the fire department and the police department. I'm happy to try and answer any questions if you have suggestions, concerns.
Do you think anything should be changed from what we have done? Or would you rather just think about that and get back to us with suggestions or?
Actually, today, I have exactly 38 years ago, I started as a rookie in New York. 15 years that I've been dealing with this, and to be honest with you, I applaud everybody. I applaud everybody that's up on this council. I've said this many times in many years. The only thing that changes is the people up here. The traffic is still the traffic. Until we can get that bridge, I don't have the answer for you, but I can tell you that eventually just going to have to say, we've done everything we can. Because sometimes we end up causing more of a problem by trying to solve that problem. So,
Anybody have any questions for Chief Cole?
I'm not sure if it's the chief or our town manager. It seems like one of the things that's different this year than last year is last year there was clear notification on South Dogwood, that the whole no left turn thing, that you shouldn't go there. Now, I haven't been there on Saturday, so I don't know, is there anything at the entrance to South Dogwood that says long traffic delays, this is going to take you a very long time, local streets are blocked off, but something so that people at least would think about going on
Right.
South Dogwood?
yeah, I don't know about, the sign that we put up is right there by the school, so you can kind of see it from 158. And that specifically says, expect extreme delays
Oh, good.
on South Dogwood. And it suggests that you
So then-
you
so
stay
they've
on,
been warned. Okay.
yeah, 158. So we have done that. But even with a no left-hand turn last year,
Oh, I know.
you're still getting 4,000 cars. So, the perception is always working, but in reality, when you look at the numbers, it's really not making that big of a difference.
Can you comment, I mean, I've read the calls for service, but just how much your officers have been physically handling these barricades?
Last weekend wasn't quite as bad because they filled them up to where they needed to be. A couple of them were slowly leaking, but they dealt with that. They deal with a lot of on top of all the traffic violations, they're dealing with a lot of calls for service. A lot of them are talk with officer, and some of that's not really nice stuff that they have to say, which is fine. They're upset. They're ticked. They just spent $5,000. And all they're thinking about with the 3 or 4 kids in the back seat screaming is just getting to my rental house. So if it says local traffic only, they don't care. They're on a mission. And a lot of them, to be honest with you, some of those cars that were adamant on going Hickory because of the GPS literally had rental houses. They were just trying to get to Hillcrest.
Yeah.
So they have a legitimate, reason to be there. And that's part of the problem that people don't understand is that they're still public streets and people have a right to traverse them, so.
And this is anecdotal, not, because I don't know if you have the stats, but I live on Ocean Boulevard. It seems to me our traffic on Ocean Boulevard moved pretty well the last 2 weekends.
Right.
I mean, I had less problem leaving my house and going back than, I don't do it very often, but when you have to, it just seemed like that traffic was moving. And then I could see, reading what people were saying online, that the traffic inside the town was just stopped.
Yeah. Now, according to a couple of people that live on South Dogwood, it was bumper to bumper, but it was actually moving better than it was the weekend before. Whether or not, there's obviously there's times when it does bottleneck up and it doesn't move, but they said it was definitely moving better than it was the weekend before. And I don't believe that it backed up quite as far. At least I know it didn't back up to the cemetery like it did the weekend before that.
And just anecdotally, I think from my being out around 3:30, 4:30 in the afternoon on Saturday, walking all the way to Duck Road on East Dogwood, I can tell you that by the time the cars leave your driveway area and get up towards East Dogwood, it's bumper to bumper, and they're moving very slowly, if at all. By the time I went to the beach and turned around and came back, it had literally just, the cars were stopped. So at that point, only one car was getting off of East Dogwood and onto Duck Road for the time that I was there.
Yeah.
And I ran into a gentleman who was on his bicycle, kind of cruising around town, and he told me that the CO's backup was about 40 cars long.
Yeah.
Ideally, I guess if we could place the same amount of cars on East Dogwood, Hillcrest, 11th, and CO's at the same time, we could figure out a way for them to get into the line of traffic. But that's impossible.
It
We
is.
just literally can't do that.
Yeah. And like I've said before, is that traffic on Duck Road is only going to go as fast as the car that's leading the parade. And
Exactly.
we all know where the bottleneck is.
Yeah.
Right.
Period.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks, Chief.
So I was in the traffic on Sunday on Route 12, and it did move. And I would at times cover 500-600 yards in one light change. And it took me about 13 minutes to get from Southern Shores Realty to East Dogwood.
Yeah.
So
And
that was a ton faster than if I'd gone to see it.
Yeah. I don't get it, but if you look at the numbers, Saturdays compared to Sundays, there's like less than half of that traffic goes up South Dogwood. It stays right on 158 to Duck Road. It's Sundays. I don't know. It's just, and it's almost the same number of vehicles. It's just that they're actually staying on Duck Road, which I don't know why but that's been that way for several years. So. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it
very much.
very much. Thank you also, Cliff. Any other staff comments? Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, council comments. Do you want to lead us off, Paula?
Were you still on track?
Yeah, I'm still sort of on traffic, but on a more positive part of traffic. And maybe I've missed this. Have we done anything to publicize the fact that the brief has been filed in the Fourth Circuit? And I think that's one thing we can say to our residents is, Southern Shores has taken a huge lead here and made a financial commitment and a big commitment to do what we can to get the bridge built. And I don't know if we could get the newspapers to cover something with it. I put it on our website. But I think it's a very well-written brief. I think it's to the point. And I think it's pretty strong in that it's not just us, but we're joined by other municipalities and counties and organizations. And I think just at least something to our residents to say, we are doing what we can do, but the traffic is the traffic.
That's a great idea. I think we should do all of that. I'm sure the voice will pick it up. I feel confident, and OBX Today and Coastland Times, et cetera. So that's a great idea. Thank you, Paul. I have a few traffic comments. Do you want me to go first or do you want to go
You
first?
first.
Okay. To follow up on Chief Cole and Cliff's presentation, I just want to go back again to the no left turn and the reasons for not implementing that this season. Previously, Cliff has done an excellent job explaining that it's a hazard risk, an accident risk. We have documentation of accidents that have occurred, information from our police department. We have documentation of, or we have evidence based on the car counts that the impact of the red arrow on the traffic light and the barricades in the lane indicate sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. In other words, the data is not consistent. We had people doing U-turns in the middle of 158. It turns out that's not illegal. That's a legal maneuver in a car, which just sort of baffles me, but that is a fact. The intersection belongs to NCDOT. The traffic light belongs to NCDOT, and they are not willing to implement that no left turn without the approval of the town of Kitty Hawk. The elected officials in the town of Kitty Hawk declined to support implementing that. So therefore, we're not doing it. Our neighbors to the north, Duck. The previous mayor, Mayor Bennett, asked the Duck elected officials to try to implement something to mitigate the pedestrians that continue to go back and forth across the road on the south end in the Duck Village. They did a traffic study last year. I did another ask of the elected officials in the town of Duck. Their traffic study, essentially, the conclusions were, well, the pedestrians are the problem on the south end of town. Those elected officials choose not to implement anything to mitigate the effect of pedestrians blocking the cars from moving through the town of Duck in a safe way, or moving them through faster in a safe way. They definitely emphasize safety. The elected officials in Kitty Hawk are accountable to their voters. The elected officials in Duck are accountable to their voters. That's how democracy works, folks. So we have asked our partners. The partners have done what they chose in the best interest they thought, and that's where we are. I just wanted to put that out there. One of the solutions is the Mid-Currituck Bridge. We've done what we can, we think, with the brief. We're doing what we can with our federal elected officials, our state elected officials, and NCDOT. We're continuing to bring that up in terms of it being an important solution or part of the solution to our traffic woes. Obviously, we just have too many visitors checking in on Saturday. And when I continue to start the conversations with property managers about, wouldn't it be a good idea if we could get some more people to check in on Friday or Sunday? The first thing that they tell me is, we already do that. And the first thing I tell them back is, we need to do more of that in order to make it better for our residents here in our town. So I'll continue to have those conversations and we'll see where it goes. But people need to realize that after 2.5 years of pandemic, people are on edge. They're more easily, I think, aggravated by whatever situation they are in, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a line of traffic, whether it's in a grocery store or another retail store. People are on edge, and, you just need to realize that when you go out in public, that this is what you're going to be, kind of faced with. I don't have a solution for that either, other than deep breaths. Thanks for listening. That's all I got. Anything else, council? We have a meeting in July, on July the 5th. I'll conduct another mayor's chat on July the 13th. That's a Wednesday at 4 p.m. If we don't have any other business, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Someone,
So moved. Second.
second.
And we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
So what happens if we do nothing?